particularly influential international organization is often said is the World Bank.
Mm-hmm.
What, in your view, has the role of the World Bank been in tackling HIV/AIDS in developing countries?
The World Bank contribution has been modest, not particularly impressive. Indeed, until we were into this last decade, the first decade of the 21st century, we were into the decade before the World Bank started making grants rather than loans in dealing with HIV and AIDS. I can remember the World Development Conference in Addis in 2000, when the Africa Development Forum, it was called, when AIDS was the subject. And the huge debate at that time was whether or not the World Bank would make grants rather than loans in dealing with HIV/AIDS. And I can remember vividly the representative of the World Bank being shouted at and hooted at and heckled by the 1,000 delegates who were present from Africa because she was arguing for loans rather than grants. Now it changed over time, and I think that particular representative of the World Bank was relieved when it changed. But the bank's contribution to HIV, they've done some good things on the ground, but it's pretty modest all in all. And a lot of it is process, a lot of it is policy. They haven't put all that much money into it compared to the Presidential Initiative of the United States, PEPFAR, or compared to the Global Fund. The bank isn't a player in those realms. What must be remembered, forgive me for this momentary ideological spasm, what must be remembered is that the World Bank is almost single-handedly responsible for the structural adjustment programs in the 1980s and the 1990s, which were lunatic econometric programs, which compromised the integrity of the social sectors of country after country, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, by imposing school fees and imposing fees for health, imposing conditionality in return for the loans. It did tremendous damage. We're still recovering from that damage. The World Bank is going to take generations, as far as I'm concerned, to achieve even modest redemption. And even now it continues to get itself into situations where it's being very heavily criticized, whether it's building a dam in some country or the failure to support a country by way of resources. The World Bank has had intermittent leadership of quality, but only intermittent. It has some terrific people in the central bureaucracy, but at the top it hasn't always been well led. But it made a terrible ideological mistake over structural adjustment programs, and no organization which did such damage to human well-being has any right to pretend that it has somehow compensated for it by making a small overture on this issue or that issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis.
Okay.